Very pleased to be joined by the man you hear every weekend with Coach Doug Matthews on Football Saturday. He is NFL Network's Charles Davis, kind enough to give us a few minutes here on this Wednesday morning. Charles, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope the three of you are the same.
Yes, sir.
We are excellent. Charles, there's this growing consensus that it's Cam Ward, the guy for the Titans after some of the trade back rumors have quieted down a little bit. Do you agree that appears to be the next step and the right next step for the Tennessee Titans?
I'll start with you guys are closer to it than I am, so you know better, in terms of what's going on the day-to-day. Is it the right thing? To me, the only way you answer that is if Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker, and, of course, Brian Callahan have all said our conviction is that the player we must have at quarterback is Cam Ward. Because if you have conviction on the quarterback, you should take him. That's just how I look at things. If you think that's your guy, you've got to take him. And, those days of long ago of, God, if we get the wrong quarterback, we've set our franchise back 5 years, that's gone. Because you can swing and miss at a quarterback just about every year if you do things right. I think Ramon and I talked about this recently. The Arizona Cardinals moved up from, in the 20s, was it, to 10 to take Josh Rosen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And 1 year later, they took Kyler Murray at 1. And I think that announced to the whole NFL world, oh, yeah, guys, that onerous $50 million guarantee to your number one overall quarterback is no longer in play. If you miss and he's not your guy, find a way to get the right guy. So I'm back to what I said before. If their conviction is that Cam Ward is the right guy, they should take him. If their conviction is none of these quarterbacks are truly our quarterback for the future, then they need to keep exploring other opportunities. Although I will say this, from the beginning, I think any of us who looked at this thought to ourselves, this is not 2016, and a king's ransom is not coming their way for the number one overall pick. It's not happening.
Right. Charles Davis with us. So when you watch Cam Ward, what are the strengths that you like the most, and what are some of the weaknesses that are going to need to be corrected if he is the guy who steps in right away for this team?
Well, the strengths are the arm can get the ball anywhere, anyplace, anytime. It can do it from any arm angle. He's like a great shortstop with a big arm from deep in the hole who can make all the throws, whether he's zipping it the second to turn a double play or to beat a runner getting there, or he's getting it all the way over to first base. He can range deep to either side and make the throws. He'll throw across his body. He'll throw with his body. He'll make throws that you don't expect. I'm not going to get into all the look-away passes and all that Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and other people have influenced. But, look, if he thinks a guy's open, he's just going to gun it in there. All right, that he's got great confidence in his arm, and rightly so. He's got that big wing. What you worry about, of course, is the off-platform plays that they don't understand. That's not a play to be made. Because in college, you can probably get away with a lot of them. Remember, there's a good number of us that play in college that don't play in the NFL. Okay, we're going to make really good CPAs. We're going to be tax attorneys. We're going to do all sorts of other things. Heck, we're going to even talk about the game, but we're not going to play in the NFL. Hal Mummy said it a bunch of years ago in Kentucky why he punted the ball out of bounds all the time. He said because the punt returners in the SEC all have NFL next to their name. The guys I have chasing that guy all have CPA next to their name. It's not a fair fight. So in college, we have to remember, even at the highest level, most of the people he's playing against are good college football players. They're not NFL players, so he gets away with more. He's going to have to harness some of that. He's going to have to rein that in and understand it and get it right. And one of the things that flashes through my mind is everything you saw last year. How many times did you see the expression on Brian Callahan's face or the fans in the stands doing whatever that expression is when Will Levis made a crazy play?
No doubt.
Does Brian Callahan really want to do that again? He's like, I'm trying to coach that out. So that's the one thing to keep in mind with Cam Ward. I'm not saying it won't get coached out of him. I'm not saying that you coach it totally out of him, because there's times he's going to make a play that you just go, oh, my God. Right? Remember that old no. Oh, yes. So that's a part of it, too. But I just think that he is He's a legit item, and he's proved it everywhere he's gone. No one believed in him coming out of school, so he's an incarnate word. Then he's at Washington State in the Pac-12 playing in the Palouse. Then he's at Miami last year, and at each place he got better. So for those who rank him the number one quarterback, I totally understand why.
Our good friend Charles Davis with us this morning. Charles, man, I always got to say go Vols when I see you first, but go Vols.
Absolutely. Big tournaments coming up.
Yes,
so let's
sir.
do it.
Yes, sir. Also with that, man, you mentioned these quarterbacks and changing them out. It's 3 franchises, man, the first 3 that have to pick, Charles. And I feel like the coaches are somewhat on a hot seat in a sense, too, depending upon wins and losses, right? Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. You look at Brian Callahan here in Nashville, the number 1 overall pick. You also look at Brian Dable. Like, you say you can change out the quarterback if you miss, but what is that, what is that as far as job security for the coaches, or does it matter?
Sometimes, Ramon, as you know, you can draft a rookie quarterback and gain yourself some job security. Yeah. So if ownership believes in you as the head coach and they say, hey, we're gonna draft a rookie quarterback, a lot of times you'll see or you'll quietly hear the head coach has got an extension because they believe in him doing that. I don't think in any of these 3 cases we're going to have that. Not always because people don't believe in him. Brian Callahan's just his second year, and it's brand new management. Yes, Chad Brinker was here, but Chad wasn't in control like he is now. So that's different, right? Mark Margonza, his first year as a GM. So there's no extension coming. They all have to prove things to each other, okay? Cleveland, they just got an extension last year. They're not getting an extension this year, okay? Right. All right, that's not happening. And then, of course, obviously, we're talking about the Giants. Well, there's a reason there's no off-season Hard Knocks this year. We saw what happened. Too much it was great theater for us. But all you hear in the offseason is the man told him twice that Saquon was valuable to them, and they didn't keep him. Now, I still don't think the reason they got rid of him was wrong. It just worked out in the worst possible manner for the Giants. So everybody's like, we're not going to do that. So none of them are in a position where extensions are part of it, even if you get a rookie quarterback. But at the same time, who are they going to play at quarterback? If you're Cleveland right now, who's your starting quarterback in game 1 in September? If you're the Titans, are you starting Will Levis? Do you want to? And then if you flip it over to the Giants, Daniel Jones is long gone. I know Tommy DeVito just got an extension. Okay, that's a fun story. All right? But if you're going to trot him out there on opening day and say he's your guy, then everyone ought to be getting a moving van ready right then and there.
Oh, my gosh, Charles. Tony DeVito got an extension. There we go, man. But that being said, as far as valuation goes, Charles, like Travis Hunter has been said to be the best player in college football all year. So much so he won the Heisman. He's top 5 being picked. There's nothing to sniff at. But why isn't he the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, in your opinion?
It's a great question, and here's my theory on it. Part of it is Travis Hunter played a lot of last season in the 170 pounds, high 170 pound range. Yeah. Okay. And as great a player as he is, I think there's a sense that if you put a stopwatch on him, he's not running in the 4.2s or the 4. Is he running in the 4.3s? Wow. Maybe not. He is just a terrific football player. And then, of course, people always get jammed up on where are we going to play him. Well, I think each organization will have a plan for that. You will play him on one side of the football full time with a package or 2 for the other side of the football, and you'll have conviction on it. And everything will settle its way in the first year or 2 in the league about what exactly you're going to do with him. He is a game breaker. We know that. I think that most ownership groups, when they weigh in, will want him to play offense because offense does sell tickets way more than him playing on defense. And if he's a lockdown corner, in most situations you can try to avoid him. On offense, you can get the ball to him a variety of ways. So it's a great question about why he's not number 1. But I think a lot of the reason is because overall, if you're not taking the quarterback, I feel like more people will lean towards Abdul Carter from Penn State as a pass rusher versus a guy, is he a corner, is he a receiver? But you remember Cleveland years ago had that big debate. Do we take Bradley Chubb from NC State as an edge rusher, or do we take Denzel Ward as a corner out of Ohio State? And in most cases, the NFL consensus is always you take the pass rusher. Cleveland fooled us and took the corner. And Greg Williams was their D coordinator at the time. And you remember what Greg Williams said? He's like, hey, in this league, they get rid of it so fast, we're starting to lean towards the cover guy.
Wow.
And that was an interesting thing. Now, was that self-serving for them at that time to take him? Sure it was, to justify your pick. But there is a school of thought that sometimes maybe the pass rusher isn't quite what you're looking for, only because people are so quick getting the ball out of their hands. I don't really subscribe to that theory. I still think they have an effect. Max Crosby's never going to lead the league in sacks, but Max Crosby's always going to lead the league in pressures. And pressures have an effect on them, too.
Charles Davis of the NFL Network joining us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. So the Titans have helped their offensive line, but there are still a lot of holes on this team that they're going to try to continue to address in the draft, Charles. They don't have a third-round pick. What do you do if you're the Titans with that second-round pick right now, at least? Do you go wide receiver, where there's a lot of holes in that room, or do you go edge, where now they don't have Harold Landry? That's a really weak room right now.
Yeah, and a strength of this draft is the D-line, Kayla. I mean, it is a bunch of pass-rushing guys, both interior and on the edge. And, you know, every year you're going to have plenty of receivers. That's never going to change because we're playing 7-on-7 pretty much from kindergarten on now. So these kids, we're developing receivers now. Times are different. Growing up for me, runners were the thing. And if you let's just use the great state of Texas. Back then, you pitched the ball to everyone. Now you throw it to them. Imagine that. Texas has developed quarterbacks and receivers. It used to be Texas developed running backs. It's a whole different world now. So I'm looking at it, the strongest position group, I think more options might be at the edge rusher spot. But, of course, they'll get to that spot and see. Now, I do think the Titans probably are talking about, are we able to move back and get more picks? Because this is a roster that just needs people. It needs depth. It needs people at every spot. So are you getting that one guy that's a difference maker that you have to have? Or can you move back on him and pick up an extra and essentially get the same guy? Because I will tell you, I had a GM say to me 2 weeks ago, he said, listen, in this draft, essentially, you start picking around 5, 6, 7. He said, I can go back to 50 to 55, and there's not a whole ton of difference in what I'm going to get. That's what the GM told me.
Wow. Charles Davis joined us this morning of the NFL Network. So kind of in that capacity where we're talking about if they could have the option to trade back, and they do it. Right now, you mentioned the quarterbacks on the roster, Will Levis, just signed Brandon Allen, which, let's be honest, like, he's a backup, right? I think the biggest thing here, Charles, is people are just – they want to give up on Will Levis because he just hasn't been able to prove he can be a starter. But if that's the case and they trade back, it looks like Will Levis will be the quarterback here. Can he, revive himself, or do you feel like he needs another environment, another team to do that?
No, I think he could do it here. I think the best part about being in Nashville is it's got a very passionate fan base. But it doesn't have a fan base that's going to come off the top rope on you everywhere you go. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Will Levis has to hide in his house. I think more people will walk up to Will and go, we're with you, Will. We hope you can get better, even if they walk away muttering under their breath. Mm-hmm. You know, people are not nice, a lot nicer, and it's a wonderful thing. It's one of the beautiful things about Nashville and Tennessee. People are going to be much more encouraging. If he were in a different city, it'd be over already, Caleb. It'd be done. But it's not. I think that there's still that opportunity. But obviously, it is obvious. To me, it's all on him. It's up to him to decide how he wants to play this game. And are you going to make the mistakes you made last year? Just think, if he doesn't do what he does against Chicago and the Jets, isn't that weeks 1 and 2, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Think if those things don't happen. We're having an entirely different conversation, I believe, right now. Because this season's off to an entirely different start. You're 2-0 to begin the year, first and foremost. Okay? You beat a Chicago team that's coming off a hard knocks with the number one quarterback, and people believe they've got juice. And you just beat Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I think things are different. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they went to the Super Bowl, but I think Will's off to a different start. He's playing differently. It's a different comfort zone. You get my point. I realize it's 2 plays out of all of that, but those were 2 massive plays. And the first time Brian Callahan did it like a TV movie and put his arm around him, come on, kid, we'll get him next time. And the second time, I thought he was going to double suplex it. and you understood both feelings.
Yeah.
Like, I remember people were giving Brian Callahan grief, and I was like, what?
Right.
What do you mean grief? Did you not see what we just saw? Like, you think he hasn't coached that? Yeah. And I realize, coaches tell you all the time, if a guy keeps doing it, that means you haven't coached it enough. That's how they take on their responsibility. Do we totally buy that? The answer is no. At a certain point, either that young man gets it or he doesn't. And that's what Will Levis is working through. So I don't think that it's out of the realm. I think Brian Callahan will coach him hard and continue to coach him well. And I think there's a chance for him to be improved. I think people want to see someone else, and we understand that because new body means new hope. New person means we have no baggage, means we can get right behind them all the way. I totally get it. But don't be surprised if Will Levis is the quarterback. I'll just put it to you this way. I would not be surprised if he's improved. To what degree remains to be seen. But I think he would be an improved player.
Charles Davis, NFL Network, our guest. You hear him Saturdays with Doug Matthews, Forklift Systems Football Saturdays. Charles, Shedeur Sanders, such an interesting prospect and such a polished prospect in so many ways, but taking the sacks and then you hear the buzz out of the combine that he's falling. How do you evaluate Shedeur Sanders just as a player, and what does the film show you about him? Because I know a couple weeks ago at NFL.com, your first mock draft, you had the Titans taking him instead of Cam Ward.
Yeah, and you remember what we've talked about. We watched Brian Callahan watch all the errors and off-platform crazy plays and all. Shedeur Sanders does not do that. Does he take a bunch of sacks? He does. His offensive line has been horrendous for 2 years in Colorado. They went from horrendous. Ramon, you're going to have to help here because this is your specialty.
I know.
They went from horrendous 2 years ago to a horrendous plus last year.
Atrocious.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not putting it all on them because there's times quarterbacks got to get rid of the football. And in college football, a lot of guys will hold it an extra beat or two thinking they can make a play, even if they're not runners. And that's what I think happened with Shedeur at times. Sometimes I think he needed to see it clean before he threw it. But he does have good anticipation, touch, understanding of the game, all those things. Out of him and Cam Ward, he's clearly a better pocket passer than Cam is. Cam's going to make more off-platform plays, and I think that's where the excitement kicks in. But Shedeur is not a statue back there. And I do think he loves football. I do think that he loves the game. He loves the challenge. He loves the chess match. If you sit down and talk ball with him, you're going to get real football. He's not just out there, just making it all happen like I do on the turkey bowls with my family every Thanksgiving. He can play, which is why I put him at number 1 in my first mock draft. Plus, I knew, it would arch some eyebrows. This is what you do in mock drafts early.
Absolutely.
But there's a plausibility to it. Just think of Brian Callahan's face with some of the plays he saw last year. Shedeur Sanders doesn't make those types of plays. That's why I think he's the best pure pocket passer in this draft. Is he the most talented, physically gifted? No, he's not. But as a football player, that's why he and Cam Ward are 1 and 2. Most people have Cam Ward 1, Shedeur Sanders 2. But that's what I see in him. Now, he'll have to learn how to speed things up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He can't sit there and take that many sacks. Caleb Williams learned that lesson last year in Chicago. Shedeur will learn it whether he comes to Nashville or he ends up wherever in the NFL. Things have to happen quicker because you got to help your O-line. Okay, they're doing big work out there.
Our backs hurt,
right?
Yeah, my
and
back
Ramon,
is hurting.
Ramon, you can tell the people better. There are times when it looks like it's an offensive lineman's fault. It's the quarterback's fault because instead of setting up where the pocket is established, he gets skittish and sets up deeper.
Yeah.
And now you've screwed up the angle for your offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And the sack happens and tackle stand there like, God, you got to block that guy. Well, I did. if he sets up where the pocket's supposed to be. But an offensive lineman, you will never hear an offensive lineman come out in the media and blast their quarterback and say, if he doesn't start setting up in the right place, That's not what O-linemen do. They suffer in silence. But people who know the game understand your quarterback can help your offensive line, and at times your quarterback will hurt your offensive line.
Dinner's on me, Charles.
Excellent stuff as always with Charles Davis. You hear him calling games for CBS. You hear him on NFL Network breaking down the draft. And, of course, here locally on 104.5 The Zone every weekend with Coach Doug Matthews. Charles, always great to catch up with you. Really great insight. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to go get to work now. You guys give me a lot of work to do. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Take
sir.
care.
Charles Davis
Bye-bye.
joining us this morning here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. More reaction to that and more of your reaction. If you heard something you want to lend your voice to, it's 615-737-1045 coming up next.